Navision Security have two solutions included in it. All ships with the same objects, so it's not like it needs to be imported, but it's just two sides of the same application. Login and permissions is a set of tools for standard NAV security. It allows reporting and a lot of simplifications also. Field level and data security is the other side of the solution, and that's where normal NAV security is not enough, so you can use that for enhancing it. It makes changes to the code on the pages to enable those features, but the code changes are made with a wizard and can also be removed the same way. And typically in a larger environment, those changes will not even be in a development database. They're just being done as objects are getting ready to deploy it. You can use each part individually, and as you install it, you run a wizard, and that will actually copy all the current setup into the tables that we use for maintaining security. Login and permissions are the tools for normal NAV security. For maintenance of users, we can group permission set and companies. We can also add an expiration date on individual access controls, and in that way it's easy to assign temporary permission. When as building permission set or setting up security in general, we have a new concept we call quick security. You deny access to the things that are important, and we have already added many of the setup tables to this, and then you only have to build permission sets for the things that has been denied in there. We also ship more than 100 new permission sets for NAV. They are intended for segregation of duties and allow very precise assignment to only a single task, typically in NAV. As you build new permission set, we can record permissions, and we record both table data and also the objects being used. When knowing about the objects, it's allow a whole new level of security. An easy way to remove access to financial information is to remove all the pages and reports, of course, showing that data. We have many features that can document NAV security, and every time we change security, we do it inside our application. We can then roll back to a previous point in security because we create restore points, or we can also use these restore points to see changes over time. The other part of our solution is field level and data security, and a person can be a super user or they can be very limited. We will still be able to enhance the security with this functionality. For pages, we can make them read-only, or we can completely hide them for people. We can do the same for fields, make credit limit read-only, or hide all the information about costs on sales lines, for example. We can also create action security, gray out an action like release, or completely hide many of the actions on a page. All these things can be done with the hiding. Is actually a good way of simplifying the whole application inside NAV. The last part of this application is that we can actually create data security also. It will allow us to filter data on a page, so we only show certain records in there. We also have a way of mapping a user to many dimensions in NAV and use that in our filtering. All the features in field level and data security are done by adding code on the pages, but they will be added with a wizard in here. Navision Security has been completely installed in this database, including field level and data security. We have created a new company, and we have run the process to add the code changes to a few tables in here. I'll get back to it later, how we actually can add additional tables in here quite easily in here. But I want to go ahead and use this application. So I want to switch to a different company and do the initial setup required for activating a company for field level and data security. Have the role center for field level and data security, but of course everything is also available from the normal menu down here. To do the few initial steps, you have to go in and select what company the installation was running, the EC Security company, and then you will select copy from setup company. We'll put a couple of check marks in, and I'll get back to it later if some of the other ones would be necessary in here. But then you do a copy data between companies, and it pulls over some initial data for the installation of EC Security in here. One of the features we can control is the access to modify individual fields or to use individual pages or actions up here. Right now, nothing is active yet, so everything in here is still looking completely normal in here. I want to go to the user security setup and add a record in here. To minimize the amount of setup, we allow the blank user to be the default. Basically everybody except the one that will be specified later or would be member of groups in here. And I get the read-only, that is the default field level security code created in here. So if I now go back to my customers, my menu items now grayed out. If I look at a single customer, all the fields are grayed out, all the actions are grayed out. There's nothing I can do in here any longer. I can only see the data or I have read-only access. If I want to go open up for myself to have more access, I will select the user, the table, and then my field level security code. And if I leave the field level security code blank, all the pages will now look normal again. So my menu items came back, and of course all my fields are editable again in here. I want to build some field level security in here so I can actually control only the address fields are editable, and I want to simplify the menu by almost removing all of it and only put a few of them back again in here. So to do that, I will go create a new field level security code in here. Now everything is only one table at a time, so in that way it makes it simple to actually work with in here. It asks if I should copy the default, and the read-only that was assigned automatically is the default, and it is a good beginning point when you want to do something very precise or lockdown. So I want to copy that, and it added a line down here with page 0. Again, every page in the system is by default set to view in here. I'll then make the pages that are different, the customer card for example, I want to leave the page editable in here, and I want to be dealing with fields and actions later in here. But we can also hide pages, so if I don't want people to see the customer statistics, I can go in and hide that page in here. I want to be more precise with the customer card, so I will leave it editable, but then deal with the fields and actions also in here. In the same way as objects, with the field 0, I'll specify the default, and I'll make every field in here be view or grayed out to begin with. Then I will go ahead and add some fields, the address, the city, contact, phone number, and there's a few extra so those fields I want to make editable. So all my fields, including fields added later on, will be read-only in here, and my address information is editable in here. I can also remove information. So if I want to take the balance information away, and maybe the global dimension information and so on, I can select all those, and I will make them hidden on the page. So in that way, on the customer card, those things will now not be shown any longer, and only the post or address information is editable. Actions are all the things in the ribbon, and I want to make a really simple page, so I'm going to hide everything in here, and I will then add the actions that I want people to be seeing in here. So they can see the contacts, they can see statistics, comments, ledger entries, and ship to addresses in here. I want to make those editable. That means people can actually click on them in here. But even if I added ledger entries, I'll go change it to view in here so people can only see it. They can't click on the menu item in here. So I finished my new field level security code in here. I will go assign it to myself now in here. So instead of having the blank, I'll select the address one that I just created in here. As I now go back to my list of customers, the list is still the read-only setup, but I made an exception on the pages for the card in here. And I will see my address information is editable, and I forgot one of the fields, country region down here. My menu is really simple. I have no actions. I have a few things under navigate, and my ledger entries are grayed out. And even if I click on statistics, I get an error that I can't view the page. I'm still a super user, so this one allows me to hide pages also in here. This can be applied anywhere. If you look at, for example, in the sales documents, you could have quotes and orders being editable, all the other pages being read-only, for example. You could go hide information in the chart of accounts, simply not allowing people to run the page, and similar things in there. The other part of the solution is an ability to limit the access to data. If I look at my customers right now, I can see customers for different locations in here. If my normal users should only see the one for the blank and blue customers, I can apply filters on location code or any other field in here. We do that with something called data security code in here, and I'll go create a new one. And again, it's only one table at a time in here, and I'll just call this location because that's the primary purpose for filtering in here. Every page in the system can have its different filters, and I want to initially do the same filter everywhere. So I want to do the location code, and I want to do a hidden filter. I don't want people to see it, and I don't want them to get around it in any way. So I will be hiding that filter in here. You can have hard-coded filters like I will do initially in here, but we can actually also have filters depending on the user itself. We have a record where you can match a user against different dimensions. I also want to help people a little, so I want to make a filter on the blocked field. It is an option field, so I have to be a little careful when I filter in here. But I want to do editable in here, and in this case I could make the blank value because that's the same in every language. But if I went in and made ship, for example, it wouldn't be the same in every language. But if you use the integer value, like the first being 0, it will always work in any language actually. The same would be the case for Boolean values also, where you could do 0 and 1 for no and yes at that point. But that's all that is needed for my data security code. I want to go and apply it to my users again in the user security setup, and there's a column, a data security code out here. And I'll do it for myself and everybody else also in here. So as I hard-coded the filter for the blank or blue location in here, is showing only those ones, of course. And I can see my filter on blocked for the first value, and I can get rid of that one, and I can clear any filter, but I'm not getting around the location code in here. It is technically applied in a different filter group, so the users won't even know it actually is applied in there. I want to make this more specific to my individual user in here. So my data security code I created had a hard-coded filter in it. With the user filter, it is possible to have a filter depending on each user in here, and for a lot of dimensions in NAV. So I will go and say I want my user ID, and in default I should have the blue location. I can then make exceptions for the people that are different. So for myself down here, I will be doing either the red or the yellow location, for example, in here. So in that way, I'm using multiple locations. You could also map salespeople and things like that one. So you could have a single salesperson like JR, and in that way map this, or you could have a manager having multiple salespeople himself and then the one below actually in there. And I want to change my data security code, so I actually use this new user specific filter. And I will go into the details, and instead of having the hard-coded value, I'll be substituting values into the filter. So I put a check mark in here, and then I will delete the part that I don't want and look up to these dynamic filters in here. We have things related to the date, responsibility centers in the user setup, and then all these things about user filters, one of them being my location down here, and my value is red or yellow. We also have things related to work date, and that can be used more for helpful filters, maybe only showing the orders for the current months or something like that, for example. But I want to be using my location one. One of the reasons to include the blank one in here is when you actually create a new customer, the field will show up default with the blank one. And if you don't allow the blank, it will give a warning that you have a record that is outside your filtering. So if you allow users to create records, you should typically also allow the blank value in there, or you can at least. But now, after I made this change, I will now go and open the list of customers, and now I only see the red and yellow, of course, in here. If I look at a customer, I can see this customer uses a salesperson PS in here, and this one uses a JR in here. I can make it so people only can actually see records differently in different pages. So I want to make it so people can see all the things in the list, but only open the one the salesperson on in the customer card. So I made it for every page in here. I'll go and make this different on the customer card in here. So I'll look at the details, and I will copy the information from my page 0 in here, so I don't have to type the same information again. I don't want people either now to remove the filter on blocked in here, because if something is blocked, a normal user should maybe not unblock it again. So by not being allowed to see that on the card, it wouldn't be allowed in here. The other thing is I want to have my salesperson code as an additional filter, again a hidden one, and I want to be based on my dynamic filters, being the one about my sales purchaser code down here. So in this case, I now have a different filter on my customer card, and it allows me to only see the one that I'm the salesperson for, and the user filter is used for mapping that value. As I now go look at my customer, and it's using JR that I was mapped to, it works fine. If I try to open up another one, it tells me the record is not available, and it will find me basically the first one that falls within my filter at this point. So in this way, I'll be able only to edit the one that I'm actually the salesperson for at this point. So it makes it also possible to different filter by each page in here. Another common use for this one is actually also to filter the chart of account, for example. It is possible to filter based on a global dimension filter, for example. So right now I can see on my cleaning account I have 26,000 in here. If I wanted to set up so these things only will calculate based on maybe one or more dimensions, I would go into my user filter, and I will go in and add a department code in here and saying I'm only going to see the sales, and normal people is actually only going to see the blank one. If you didn't want them to see anything, you could make a filter that could never be true. So making something like A and B at the same time would never have any records fulfill that. So in that way, they wouldn't see anything. I'll leave it blank up here. Now I want to build a data security code, and this time it's for the GL account. I want to do the same for every page. It didn't matter where I come from. And I will find my global dimension down here. I want to do the global dimension filter, and that's important because that's what's being used for calculating the flow fields. The global dimension is what's being copied when you build a document or build a journal line, for example. I want to do a hidden filter, and I want to substitute my filter value. And in this way, I want to select my user filter for global dimension 1 in here. That's really all I need beyond assigning it to my user in here. And I will actually make this one for everybody in the system. And I will just make my department filter that I just created for data security out here. So as I now go back to my chart of account, my cleaning account used to be 26,000. Now it's only 13,000. And if I drill down, I would only see some of the entries. And if I ended up choosing the department column in here, all these would of course be for the sales in here. There's other ways to get to the general ledger entry, so you wanted this one to be completely secure. You wanted, of course, to allow this one also to be directly on the general ledger entry. That is another table, but during drill down, it will inherit that filter, and there's no way I get around that. I can clear it, but I'm not going to clear the department code filter out here. So that's the other part of the solution, the ability to filter data in here. There is, of course, if you have a lot of users, creating a record for each user can be quite a lot of people you will have to add in here. And it is possible to also use groups in here. So since I assigned security for myself in here, I'll actually go in and add some group members. I will add myself as the person that has been set up. It could also just be a user that was not a real Windows user maybe, but just a group that you would actually be using for assigning in here. And I could make John the same, and I would go here and also make Susan the same, for example, in here. So I now have two people that is using the same field level and data security as I do. If I go to the user security setup, I can make this all user statistics, and I will see that if I look at David, based on the default, the blank user, he has department filtering, and on the customer read only and location. John, that is using the same as I have, because a member of the group, will actually be using the address and the location in here. And I have a direct assignment myself in here. You can still override it also, So Susan really needed full permissions. I can go in and select Susan in 18 and say no field level and no data security. And in that way, Susan, of course, will have no limitations on the customer. Everything would look normal in here. And it is a direct assignment in here. All the data for field level and data security controlling this, some of it is being copied from the EC Security company. And it is possible to put this information back here also. But of course, anyone that is a super user would be able to change this information in here. We can limit the access to modifying this data in here. So to do that, we have something we call a login setup in here. And we will be able to put in the people that we actually would like to be able to change any of the data controlling it in here. So I'll go here and select myself and Tim in here. And there is a row of fields out here where you decide what people can do, and the first field in this record relates to the login and permissions part. If I look here under users myself, I would say I can edit the setup. I can edit field level security codes, data security codes, and things like that one in here. And I maybe wanted to actually assign all the parts of the data in here. But the other thing is when I actually want to have Tim be maintaining users, I maybe don't want him to deal with the actual field level and data security codes, but I want him to be able to create group members and things like that one in here. So in that way, I can delegate some people being able to do that. Since I didn't allow myself to edit security setup, I'll be showing how it actually prevents me from changing this data in here. There's one thing more required to make this work actually in here, and that is to put a check mark in the use login setup in here. As you put this check mark in, it will now protect all the data inside this part of the application in here. If I now go to user security setup and I'm trying to edit this list because I really don't like being limited down here, so I'll actually just delete that value. And it now tells me you don't have the checkmark edit user security setup in your login setup. If you didn't have a login setup, you wouldn't be allowed to do anything at all to begin with in here. So in that way, we basically protect the data for this application. Even a super user wouldn't be able to change it in here. I created several things in here under field level and data security in here for the codes. If I want to set up another company, I would really like to reuse that in here. So if I go back to my EC Security company, I would be able to copy back this information in here. So I don't have my address limit or field level security code, so I'll actually copy that from a company in here. And I can see in North America, there's one field level security code that is unique. There's 8 of them that are already copied, so I will select that. Shows me the list so I can pick one, and I will select that one, and then now copy back my address in here. It's actually now marked in the other company as now being copied from here. In that way, it will prevent changes, because to make this change, you would have to go to the EC Security because it's shared between multiple places. I also want to copy back my data security codes, and I can see I have 2 of them. I'll have to select them one at a time in here, but then I can copy them back to my EC Security company also in here. As I now want to set up additional companies, I will go to one of my other companies, the Kronos Europe in here, and do the initial steps for the setup. I will select the company that is a primary one, and then I will select copy from setup. As I do that, by default, we copy field level security setups. and data security setups. We can also copy user security setups. If you have all the same security, you could maintain it in each security company. But in this case, you can actually maintain maybe the blank user in each security and only make the exceptions. You're allowed to create additional ones for the 3 first things you can copy up here. If you decide to copy group members, you can't make local changes to that, but you will be able to set up the general groups and then make exceptions for the people that are maybe from in that one also in here. So in that way, it gets quite useful for these other options down here. But I just want to leave it as it is in here, and I will see I now got my data copied over, and I can go look at my data security code and see both my department and location is in here, and those one are marked as from the setup company. So if I want to go here and delete that, it just tells me you can't because it's coming from the setup company in here. For the other part of each security, we have a function where we can publish permissions, and it will push it to all companies. We have the same actually for field level and data security. If I use the copy data between company functions and I do it from inside the each security company, it will push it to all the companies in the database. So that's kind of a publish. You push it out to all over the place at that point. This one is all the features of the application. There is of course the initial setup in here, and when I created this database, I decided for a few tables in here that I actually wanted to use these features on. To make all this work, there is code changes in the pages, and those code changes are being created automatically actually in here by a process, and it will also be able to remove it automatically. So if I wanted to go here and add a few more tables, I want to have some of my purchase information in here, and I maybe want to limit my journal lines also at that point. So I will add a few tables in here. And I can see as I add those ones, it will tell me what pages are being using that one in here. And I only see standard NAV, but as we scan the source code initially during the install, we will find all the pages that is in the customer's database. So it didn't matter where it came from, if it's an ISV solution or custom developed. As I added more tables, I would now be able to go assign security for them. It will not work until I actually have run this implement changes in code process in here. So to do that, it requires to be able to export in text. It either requires one of the more advanced developer modules in a customer license, or it requires a partner license. So to mark the objects we need, we have a function about set the DBM table number. It will change an unused field on the object list, so I can use that for filtering in here. So I can now open up the designer, and I'll be able to filter. To be able to export in text, I'll change to a partner license first in here. Now I can bring up my advanced filters. I will change my field to be this DBM table number, and I will put in the filter value of 2 in here. And it is now limited to the pages and the tables that are needed in here. So I'll go ahead and export those to a text file. It's a very good idea to also export the objects to a FOB file. Our code is typically not creating problems, but a lot of times if there is a problem, when you try to import from text, you get an error at that point. So as a last test, I will simply go compile these 154 objects to ensure that everything works in here. I can now go to my field level security. I will select the text file and it will create output in a different text file in here. And I can now implement changes in code in here. This one will read information from the tables and it will add code to the pages to support these features. You can overlay the page and just run this process. We will actually write the changes again in there. You can also manually add fields. Just run this process afterwards and we will add the code necessary for those fields also in there. It's important to know that this function that write all the changes can also remove all the changes. So before you start doing any upgrades, you should really take away all this code changes in here. I can see I have 69 pages being modified. A lot of them already had the code changes in there. So if there's no change needed, we won't put anything up there. There's also 3 code units, and those ones are actually inside the Easy Security range. So I'll import my out file. And the DBM table number disappears now, is not used for anything anymore. So it's an old unused field. So I'll show all the records. And one of the ways to find what was changed is to filter on the date in here. So as I now see all the objects, I have all the pages related to those tables. And I have some functions up here that are being created inside a couple of code units in here. These pages are calling those code units. So if you run this in a test database and want to move the compiled objects, then always remember to move the code units, because the code in the code unit is associated with the changes in the pages also in there, of course. So it all compiles fine, and it now have the ability to also control the purchase side, and all my journals in here in NAV also in here can be controlled with the same level of functionality. As you initially install this one, the best approach is to make the tables you need with this change, and then afterwards add more as needed. You shouldn't create 150 tables in here if you really only need a few to begin with. And it is not a replacement for normal NAV security. So normal NAV security can control a lot of things, but it's really only when you need field level and similar on top of that one.